welcome to Looking at the Markets with David Modell. I have an options guru, if he doesn't mind me calling him that today. It is Mr. Tom Sosnoff from tastyworks and tastytrade. He's going to give us a couple of quick tips for options traders and even a new feature on tastyworks, which you can visit at tastyworks.com, which will really help expand your trading possibilities. Mr. Sosnoff, welcome to Looking at the Markets, sir.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
It's just an honor to have you. We're going to get into tastyworks and a thing called, I'll let the cat out of the bag now, order chains. It's a super exciting feature, but just a couple of quick questions about options trading in general. I've heard a statistic that 80% of the time, 8 out of 10 times, options are overpriced. Meaning that the actual move of the underlying stock doesn't even go that far 8 out of 10 times. Would that be accurate, or is that kind of an exaggeration?
No, it's a little higher than that. But when you're saying there's a big difference between options being overpriced and the actual move doesn't go what the realized move isn't what the implied move is, the expected move. So those are two different things. The reality is that the options are never over or underpriced. Never. They're always priced perfectly. But they're about somewhere around between 84 and 86% of the time. The implied move, which is the expected move based on option prices, is greater than what really happens. Or the realized move, as they say.
And so therein lies perhaps the one of the best parts of being an options seller. It sounds like the casino is rigged in your favor a little bit if you're a seller. Are there situations in which you would actually want to be a buyer of options?
It's not that it's rigged in your favor. What it really is it's more probabilistic as far as the number of wins you're going to achieve. It doesn't mean you're going to make more money necessarily, because remember, if no options are theoretically over or underpriced, then all it means is you're going to put more wins on the board than losses. But when you lose more than you win. That's the only difference. So that's how we look at the business.
Yeah. But it's a great business model. That I look at trading as a business for sure, and I take it very seriously. You got to.
Yes, I do too.
Yeah. Now, in low volatility type of situations, when it feels like the market is just gonna say, good news is good news and bad news is good news. As an option seller, what do you do? Do you sit on your hands, or how do you find opportunities?
Well, the good part is that there's always opportunities. So whether it's, even in markets that have low implied volatility, there's usually some, outlier stocks that have, where there's stuff going on. There's almost always something going on. But the question that you asked before that I just forgot to answer directly was, is there a time when you'll flip the cards over and buy them? And the answer is not necessarily in our world. There's a time when, here's the interesting thing, David. When you have high volatility and low volatility, your probability of profit doesn't change in high and low volatility as a seller. What changes is the amount of money you make and potentially the amount of money you can lose if you're wrong. But the actual probability of success doesn't change. So we don't ever play the game of really buying options just because of the, I don't like the low win rate. That's all it is.
Yeah. And I also just wanted to ask real quickly, sometimes I feel like you have to play earnings when nothing else is going on, when it's a low vol market. Sometimes I feel like you don't have to play earnings. What is your opinion on having to play earnings?
I completely agree with you. Today was a perfect example in Netflix. The volatility rank was super low at 19. I don't think it was a great earnings play. And yet, we kind of forced an earnings trade, and now the stock is up, a little over 2 times the expected move. So it's not going to be a good earnings trade. So, the bottom line is that, yeah, you're right. You got to think about option trading as you got to think about it opportunistically, and you can't think about it as something you have to force just because it's there.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to put tastyworks.com in the description below this video so people can go there directly. And so there's a new feature, order chains. I don't want to describe it myself. I'd rather have the expert do it. So what is that all about?
Well, a few years ago, I'm going back probably 5 or 6 years, we started introducing a style of trading, which is very much to complement all the research that we do. And the style of trading was, when you put a position on, rather than, because options are strategic by nature. So when you put a position on, rather than close the position out for a small loss or large loss, whatever, or close or take a small win or large win, whatever it is, let's make it a little more mechanical. In the process of making mechanical, let's set up a bunch of things that we can do. Like if the trade's going against us, we can, if we're selling puts and the trade's going against us, we can take the calls that we sold and roll them down. Or if we didn't sell any calls, we could sell calls. If the market's going up and we sold calls, we could sell puts against those, or we could take the puts we've already sold and roll them to a higher strike, a higher delta, to reduce our risk. We call that kind of rolling up and down. It's adjusting positions. It's kind of keeping the trade alive, keeping the dream alive, but without having to, make a whole new trade, just adjust existing trades. So we built really cool technology, which is the core of the tastyworks platform, to handle all those kinds of roles, adjustments, and everything else. It's super simple, throughout the whole platform. But people were like, well, that's cool for you guys because you can remember like what you did. But I can't remember what I did. I'm new to this. Like, you talk about like, I rolled this to this. I did, Simon says to this, do this. Simon says to this, do this, do this. And I'm lost.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, we completely get it. I see where you're coming from. Give us some time to think about how do we address this, and let's build some technology that will, straight out address this. And it took us literally a few years to build the technology that we just released, which is called order chains. And what it does is, rather than you having to tag an order that you put on, or rather than you don't have to do a single thing. Now you make a trade. So David, let's say you're on our platform, and let's say, just as an example, you were looking at some stock, like let's just use Tesla as an example.
Sure.
And you sold a wide strangle in Tesla. You sold an out of the money put and an out of the money call, right? And you're sitting there, and next thing you know, the stock starts to rally. So now your call went from, let's say, 16 deltas to 25 deltas. So you're down a little money on the trade, but your put went from 16 deltas to 10 deltas. So now your put's cheap and your call's expensive. So you're like, well, screw this. I'm going to take my put, I'm going to buy it back, and I'm going to sell a higher put to equal out my position and reduce my risk, right? Yeah. Now you do that. It's simple. You just sell a put spread. You do it. No problem. Piece of cake. But now in your head, you forgot where you did the original trade, which is totally normal. And you don't remember what credit you collected for doing the spread, and you forget that you have to add the two together. So you don't really know what your P&L is, and no platform in the world can figure that out. The beauty of tastyworks is it does it all for you now. And you don't have to do a single thing, except if you see the platform in front of you, all you do is click on something called chains. And then it brings up every trade you made. Like this is today in Netflix. I had no positions coming in Netflix today, and I opened a bunch of different positions today. I opened a strangle, I opened an iron, I opened an iron condor, I opened a different strangle, and I adjusted those positions. And it basically shows you every single trade I made attached to every other trade that I made, and all the adjustments that I made with one single click in less than 1 second.
Nice.
And it goes back and forward for as long as you want. So if you keep adjusting if I keep adjusting this Netflix position for like a year, and I roll forward next month, and I roll to March, and then to April, then to May, then to June, and I keep the trade going, it will tell me my P&L into perpetuity. And if I closed out the trade, it'll show me what I did if I want to go back and look for up to the last 60 days. So it has this amazing depth of a database, and it has the ability to track every trade you make. You don't have to do a single thing, and all the adjustments and all the rolls and everything else you did to that trade. And like I said, nobody else has ever built anything even close to this.
Yeah.
And it's all built in the platform. It's all free. It's amazing.
Yeah, the tastyworks and tastytrade platforms. I mean, you guys pretty much pioneered the idea of not charging to buy back cheap options that you've sold. I thought that was a huge innovation, and this is another huge innovation. I believe it's going to take off in a big way. Did this come from a lot of requests from clients? Where did this come from?
Well, the funny thing is we don't we take a million, we get a million emails and we respond to everything. We're nuts about it.
Yeah,
But we don't always do what everybody wants us to do because, there's a lot of great quotes out there, but the bottom line is you have to build what your vision of the future is. You can't build what somebody else wants you to build. And so but this is from just a lot of customers saying to us over time, hey, nobody really expected that we could build this, but what people would say to us is, how do I track my trades?
yeah,
Now, we have built some pretty incredible technology over the years, and we went back. This goes back 20 years ago when we launched Thinkorswim. When we did that, the first thing we said was any option under a nickel, it'll be free to buy back. We did that right when we launched it 20 years ago, and people thought we were out of our minds.
yeah,
And other firms used to write to us and say, "You can't do that." We're like, what do you mean we can't do? We can do anything we want.
yeah,
And we did it so there'd be this risk mitigation. It made no sense for us to wait till an option gets to a penny or 5 pennies or something like that.
sure,
But now we realized through our research in our think tank, we realized, you know what? Everybody should manage their trades early. Take your risk off and use the optimal time to take a profit is at 21 days. And so 21 days before expiration. So we started to do a crazy amount of research on this. We realized we're just not going to charge anybody to close any trade. It makes total sense.
yeah. Yeah. If you're going to sell 45 days out, buy back at 21, people are doing that over and over. They shouldn't have any barriers to be able to do that or any hesitancy based on commissions. That should be obviated as a consideration. Very cool. So if people want to learn more, maybe a tutorial or something like that, where would they go?
Oh, everything's on the tastyworks site. There's tons of it. And then also on the tastytrade site, we not only do we have a learn center, but we also have something we call demo days. And there's a history of demo days in there. And they have all the all the features we do right in there.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You go to one of the demo day recordings and you can see all the features on the platform.
All right. Well, I've been a big fan of yours, Mr. Sosnoff, for a long time. You and Tony Batista, the banter between you two has always been so entertaining and fun to watch. And that's
he's a sick man, so there's nothing. He's a troubled soul. So
I love it. This is great.
I just promised his mom I would take care of him until.
Mr. Tom Sosnoff from Tastyworks and tastytrade. You guys and gals out there need to click on the link in the description below this video. This is not sponsored. I'm not being paid for this. This is just because I want to spread the word and really like this option chains feature. Mr. Sosnoff, we're going to have you back here very soon to get an update on the progress. But for today, thank you for coming to Looking at the Markets.
David, thanks so much for having me. It was great, and it was good to get to know you, and I'm looking forward to many more chats in the future. Take care, my man.
Thank you.
Thanks.